So you may have seen the recently released Shin Kamen Rider film, or are kind of wondering what Kamen Rider is in general as you've heard of things like Kamen Rider Black Sun or Kamen Rider Geats. Well, today's video is all about how to watch Kamen Rider, a step-by-step viewing guide from yours truly.
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to my Kamen Rider viewing guide. I recently did one of these for Power Rangers a few weeks ago, and to tie into the Power Rangers Once and Always special, so I thought, hey, let's do some more. In fact, it was suggested in a comment to do more Tokusatsu-based viewing guides. Kamen Rider is a franchise that has been going on for 50 years plus, so there's a lot of media out there. And in order to boil it down into a viewing guide, I can't cover everything. With Power Rangers, I covered all the shows, movies, comics, everything. It was easier to do, there's less media. With Rider, there's so much. There's stage shows that are canon, there's books and manga and anime and all this other stuff. But what I boiled down here is essentially the main screen media for each show. I'm going to cover each of their main movies and each show, so that way you have a kind of an entry point and also a basic guide. I will not be covering everything because like Kamen Rider X8 has like 40 different side specials and most of them don't matter to anything. So I really pared it down as to what I think is the most essential viewing for each Rider series. So we're going to go in chronological order from when they first started in 1971 all the way to today, and that way you can get an idea of where you might want to start your Kamen Rider journey or pick it back up if you stopped at some point. If you enjoy this type of video, be sure to hit the like button and then subscribe and the notification bell because I will be doing more of these viewing guides in the future. So let's begin with the Showa era of Kamen Rider. Now here's the ground rules for this guide, just so you know where we're coming at. First of all, only screen media, because there's just so many manga and book that just don't have translations in English, and this is also, in general, an English-speaking guide, just because I do speak English as my primary language, so we're doing kind of English-speaking stuff. We're not going to be covering stage shows with one minor exemption. There will be no franchise crossover. So Kamen Rider has had crossovers with other franchises such as Super Sentai or even Ultraman or Kikaider. We're not worried about those because that overcomplicates this. This is supposed to be a starting guide and you don't want to start making people think they need to go jump into multiple different franchises here. So we're just not going to worry about any of those. And I'm going to mention availability of shows, but it's all US based. I would love to be able to cover all the regional availability for every show. It's just really, really hard to because there's not a good record of it, and then also this would make the video really long. So I'm going to briefly mention if these are available in the US, but outside the US, and I especially know in Europe it's really hard because like almost nothing gets over there, it's going to be a little bit more limited. So on those notes, we have to begin with 1971's Kamen Rider. This is where the franchise began. Now, this is a good starting point if you are coming off of Shin Kamen Rider. Shin Kamen Rider is a reimagining of Kamen Rider, and in general, it's a really good start to the franchise because there's no expectation when they produced it. Now, however, there is the barrier to entry of the fact this is 98 episodes, and even for me, who loves the Showa era of Rider, it's a long show. So if you're more used to the normal 50 episode counts that a Tokusatsu series runs, that 98 episodes is a bit of a barrier to entry. However, if you're willing to take the dive, you will see the franchise sort of grow into its own and become what we know of it today over the course of those 98 episodes. Now, if you are watching this show, it is available on Tokusatsu streaming in the US. It does not currently have a Blu-ray release, but I highly recommend it as you can see the origins of the franchise. To go alongside that, there were 2 movies released during the show run. There was actually 3, but one of them was a TV episode turned into a movie. The 2 movies you should worry about if you are watching the show is Kamen Rider vs. Shocker from 1972, taking place after episode 51, and then Kamen Rider vs. Ambassador Hell, also from 1972, taking place after episode 68. You can cap off your run with the Kamen Rider 1 movie, which while it was released in 2016 during Kamen Rider Ghost, the Ghost characters are simply mere cameos, and you can watch this more as a Kamen Rider 1 film. So after the original Kamen Rider introduced the first 2 Kamen Riders, came the sequel series, Kamen Rider V3. 1973 released 52 episodes over the course of that year. This was, for me, the solidifier of the Kamen Rider format we would see constantly. We consistently see throughout the franchise a 2-episode story arc format, and that started with V3. V3 is also a good jumping on point if you don't want to watch 98 episodes to begin your Showa Era Rider journey. In fact, I hadn't seen the original Kamen Rider when I watched V3, and it became my favorite Rider show of all time. So if you are wanting to watch V3, it's pretty straightforward. 52 episodes, and then there's the Kamen Rider V3 versus Destron Mutants movie, which takes place after episode 22. If you're looking for something shorter and possibly more depressing, 1974's Kamen Rider X. Lasting only 35 episodes, this show sees a brand new writer who's not directly tied. V3 was created by Kamen Riders 1 and 2, so they're kind of a trio together. X takes a different approach. However, with the continuation of characters such as Tachibana Tobe, it is still tied into the overall Kamen Rider continuity. Rider leads into V3, leads into X. They all kind of connect together. And in general, X is a good standalone show that has ties to a larger universe, including its 1974 movie, 5 Riders vs. King Dark, taking place after episode 23, which sees the team up of Kamen Riders 1, 2, V3, Rider Man, who was from V3, and X. And it's a pretty cool, fun adventure. But if you really want a clean break that will just not feel like it's connected to anything and features zero crossover, 1974's Kamen Rider Amazon. Also the shortest Rider show of all time at a mere 24 episodes. The show was essentially canceled, I think, for concerns over its violence, as Amazon was a child raised in the rainforest who became a superhero after a shaman turned him into a cyborg. Kamen Rider is a little weird, I forgot to mention that up front, but it's pretty fun. I do really enjoy Amazon, and actually he has one of the best character arcs of the Showa era, going from a person who can't really articulate words to learning full Japanese by the end of the series. So you want to kind of see that journey, and the only connection to previous shows is Tachibana Tobe, because he is like the best character of the whole franchise. He continues to mentor Amazon, like he mentored X and V3 and Riders 1 and 2 before him. Next up, 1975's Kamen Rider Stronger. Only lasting 39 episodes, Stronger is also a good starting point if you want something that's in the Showa era that's not so directly continuity heavy. In general, most of them aren't super continuity heavy, but they do carry these characters forward, such as Tachibana Tobe making his last regular series appearance in Stronger. Stronger also features the first female Rider warrior in Tackle, so it's a good step forward of the franchise. There also is the altogether 7 Kamen Riders special from 1976 that acts as a sort of coda to not only Stronger, but the Rider shows that came before it. It ends this era. Rider went on a 3-year hiatus after the end of Stronger and came back with Kamen Rider in 1979. Also known as Sky Rider after its main rider, who has the ability to fly, Kamen Rider is an interesting show. It starts as a sort of reboot on the entire franchise, but eventually brings back the past riders in the series run. Lasting 54 episodes, it had one movie, 8 Riders vs. Galaxy King, taking place after episode 28. Sky Rider is an interesting show because it kind of takes a different approach, trying to reinvent Rider, and saying, oh, it's a reboot, and then going back to, it's a connected continuity. So it can be a little bit of a weird watch. 1980's Kamen Rider Super 1 is a martial arts themed superhero designed for space, and it's awesome. I love the martial arts action of this series, and it kind of has a fresh feel to it. It is still connected to past Riders with its 1980 movie, Kamen Rider Super 1 the movie, taking place after episode 20, but overall 48 episodes on Super 1, it gives you kind of a Showa vibe, but does work sort of standalone, minus that crossover. Now, Rider did take another minor hiatus and came back with a 1984 TV special, Birth of the 10th, All Riders Together. This introduced Kamen Rider Zekross, and he is one of my favorite riders of the franchise, despite barely having any appearances. It's weird. He's the 10th rider, he's kind of iconic, he is the first ninja-themed Kamen Rider, but he's only in this special. He shows up later in a crossover movie, and then he's in a new crossover special that's coming out this year, so he's not super heavy in the franchise. But Zekross is pretty cool, and that special does feature recaps and clip shows of previous Rider shows, so if you want like a primer to see if you're going to like Showa Kamen Rider, Birth of the 10th All Riders Together is my recommendation. Next up, 1987's Kamen Rider Black. Released on Blu-ray through Discotek Media if you're in the US, I highly recommend it. This show was sort of a revitalization of Kamen Rider post the Metal Hero era at Toei. They kind of did the Metal Hero franchise for a bit, came back to Rider. This is, I think, an iconic show. It's very popular, and it is quite good and high production values indeed. There were 2 movies that went alongside that, which didn't get licensed. We have Kamen Rider Black, Hurry to Onigashima, and that takes place after episode 22. And then Kamen Rider Black, Terrifying the Phantom House of Demon Pass, that is after episode 38. 1988. So those are the two movies that kind of add to the overall experience. In 1988, Kamen Rider Black got a direct sequel, Kamen Rider Black RX, which some may recognize as being the show that was adapted into Saban's Masked Rider, and that was 47 episodes. There will be a Discotheque Blu-ray release of that show coming this year. And there is a movie to go alongside of it called Kamen Rider Run All Over the World, which takes place after episode 23. If you're going to watch Black RX, you should watch Black. They don't really work standalone, but watching them together makes a great duology. And especially because the ending to Black RX brings together the entire Showa era of Rider. So once Kamen Rider Black RX wrapped up, Rider went sort of on a TV hiatus. There was no show between 1988 and 2000. However, there were some movies. 1992's Shin Kamen Rider Prologue, nothing to do with the 2023 film Shin Kamen Rider, is kind of a weird little horror film that was supposed to start a new Rider series that didn't ultimately pick up. However, if you really like gross horror practical effects, it's definitely a recommendation. If you've never seen Kamen Rider before, I highly recommend 1983's Kamen Rider Zeto. Not much in the way of plot, but it gives you the vibe and feeling of Kamen Rider, not only of the 80s and 90s, but of the franchise in general. It has a lot of the core themes. It's about 40 minutes and you can't go wrong with it. Adding to that, the Kamen Rider J film that was a sequel is also pretty solid, though maybe not as solid as Zeto. It is definitely recommended if you enjoy Zeto. And if you enjoy both together, the 1994 special Kamen Rider World is a crossover between Zeto and J. Now, Shin, Zeto, and J are getting released from Media Blasters at some point in the future on Blu-ray, but otherwise, I believe they are still on the Toei Tokusatsu World YouTube channel, and I highly recommend Zeto as a good starting point to the franchise. Now we get into the largest bulk of Kamen Rider, where from 2000 to now, we've had an uninterrupted run of Rider. So in 2000, we got Kamen Rider Kuga, which was released on Blu-ray through Shout Factory. This show did have some additional specials, but none of those are canon, so Kamen Rider Kuga is a nice 49 episodes. I highly recommend it if you're into mysteries and dramas because it has more of a drama feel to it, and Kuga is highly cited as one of the best Rider shows. It can be a little slow to get into, so if you're not looking for high action and you want more character intrigue, Kuga is the show to go. 2001's Kamen Rider Agito, similar vibe to Kuga where it has more mystery elements but isn't a direct sequel. It lasted for 51 episodes. This was the first show to have multiple writers as part of the main team. I personally love Agito because of that. It kind of brings together 3 different writers and 3 different stories and brings a lot to it. It's also just really cool and dripping with style. There also is a TV special, the Kamen Rider Agito special, A New Transformation, taking place after episode 35, and the Kamen Rider Agito Project G4 movie takes place after episode 46, though some scenes take place earlier in the show. The bulk of it takes place at that point. If you want a lot of action and writers fighting writers, Kamen Rider Ryuki, which was recently released on Blu-ray from Shout Factory in addition to streaming on the Tokusatsu network. Kamen Rider Ryuki is a nice 50-episode series. It can be watched standalone without any of its movies or specials, but there are 2 iconic specials for introducing new writers. That was Kamen Rider Ryuki Episode Final, its summer film, which was a alternate universe, and then Kamen Rider Ryuki, the 13 Writer special, which was a different alternate universe, and between the 2 of those, they round out the 13 writers Ryuki is known for, because 2 of them are exclusive to Episode Final, and 1 of them is exclusive to the 13 Writer special. Next up, 2003's Kamen Rider Phase. Lasting for 50 episodes, Phase is pretty much standalone. A lot of its side specials and other media and its crossover appearances may or may not be canon, and that means Phase is a nice, complete, standalone package. This one is going to be dripping with melodrama, so if you don't like melodrama and sort of more depressing storytelling, Phase isn't going to be the show for you. However, there is 2 extra movies that are worth noting. The 2003 film Kamen Rider Phase Paradise Lost was released alongside the series, but unlike the Project G4 movie for Agito, and more like the Episode Final movie for Ryuki, this is an alternate universe showing a possible future. Now, in 2024, there will be the proper follow-up 20 years later sequel to Phase, Kamen Rider Phase Paradise Reignited. And we'll have to see what that film turns out next year. In 2004, Kamen Rider Blade came on the air. This was a card game themed show in the sense that every character is based on original playing card suits, and that's pretty cool. It features characters fighting the monsters known as the Undead in the organization board. This is actually kind of an interesting show because it has sort of the Phase melodrama, but has the writer versus writer action of Ryuki. We start to see kind of a shaping of the franchise in the modern day. It lasted 49 episodes, and the Kamen Rider Blade movie Missing Ace takes place in an alternate universe. In 2005, Kamen Rider was not originally going to have a show. Another standalone tokusatsu show was being developed. That show eventually became the Kamen Rider Hibiki. Hibiki is different than every other Rider show because it wasn't designed to be one. However, after episode 30, it does get tweaked to be more Rider-like. I really love Hibiki for its uniqueness, but it may not work for everybody. It's dripping in Japanese lore and culture, and especially having the style and substance with its music, to its visuals, and just everything involved. It's a really cool show. It is 48 episodes, and that is a perfectly standalone series on its own. Its summer film that was released alongside of it, Kamen Rider Hibiki in the 7 Senki, is canon-ish. It has flashback sequences which are canon, but the modern day sequences aren't because they don't fit anywhere in the show's timeline. So it's kind of a fun thing to watch if you enjoyed Hibiki. 2006's Kamen Rider Kabuto lasted 49 episodes, featured bug-themed riders once again, and featured the really cool speed mechanic that means they were doing cool stuff like Quicksilver in the X-Men movies, except years before on a much smaller budget. Kamen Rider Kabuto lasted 49 episodes. Its tie-in movie, Godspeed Love, is an alternate universe. 2007's Kamen Rider Den-O is one of the most popular shows in the entire franchise and continues to get appearances by these characters in future media and launched its star into superstardom in Japan. However, Den-O is not a good starting point. While 49 episodes on its own seems fine, you mix in its summer movie, I'm Born, which takes place after episode 27, you're good. You start mixing in Kamen Rider Den-O and Kiva Climax Deca, and then you start seeing the problem. They start putting Den-O into crossovers with everything. So if you're a first-time Rider fan, I don't recommend Den-O because they'll just show up in everything else. It's kind of good to watch them a little bit later on when you got some familiarity. Now, that Den-O and Kiva movie does not have Kiva in it much, so you don't need to watch Kiva to watch it. And Saraba Kamen Rider Den-O Final Countdown works as a sort of finale to Den-O, even though they kept going. There is the Cho Den-O and Decade Neo Generations Onigashima Warship, which is also a Den-O movie that features Decade. And then the Cho Den-O trilogy has episode Red, Zero No Star Twinkle, which is actually a continuation for Den-O. Episode Blue, The Dispatched Imagine, is Neutral, which is a continuation of Den-O Final Countdown. And then episode Yellow, Treasure D-End Pirates, is about Kamen Rider Decade's secondary Rider D-End. So yeah, Den-O's a good one to watch when you got some more Rider under your belt. Now, if you love romance and vampires and gothic horror, Kamen Rider Kiva might be up your alley. Keep in mind there's a lot of romance plots and a lot of love triangles, but at 48 episodes, it's pretty cool. And it's pretty standalone, minus that cameo in Den-O's movie. But there was a Kamen Rider Kiva movie, King of the Castle in Demon World, and that is a non-canon film. It doesn't fit anywhere, and it doesn't work as an alternate universe either. Now we've come to 2009's Kamen Rider Decade, celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Heisei Era of Kamen Rider. This I don't recommend as a starting point if you are somebody that wants to keep track of continuity, because Decade features the previous 9 Heisei Riders as alternate universe versions. So you're going to get different versions than what you'd see in their actual shows. But at 31 episodes, it can kind of be a bit of a primer for the rest of the Rider universe. There also is the Kamen Rider Decade movie, All Riders vs. Die Shocker, taking place after episode 29, and the Kamen Rider X Kamen Rider Double and Decade Movie War 2010, which is a double movie combo thing, where the Decade part is the finale to Decade, but the Double part is kind of an interlude / prequel to Double, so you can just watch it as a Decade thing, but you're going to start seeing a problem with some of these movies. 2009 also had the debut of Kamen Rider Double, lasting for 49 episodes. One of the more popular shows. It's about 2 detectives that fuse together into one Kamen Rider. It's a pretty fun experience. Now, the first movie involved, the Movie War 2010 I mentioned, takes place after episode 14 of Double. So if you wanted to go from Decade into Double, you could do that and then just watch that Double Decade movie at episode 14 of Double. Then we've got the Double Forever A to Z, The Gaia Memories of Fate, taking place after episode 44. Kamen Rider Oz and Double featuring Skull, Movie War Core. The Double portion is canon to Double. The Oz portion is an alternate universe. So just watch it with Double after you've seen the series. And then also the post-series movies of Kamen Rider Double Returns, Kamen Rider Axel featuring Axel, and Kamen Rider Double Returns, Kamen Rider Eternal featuring Eternal. So it's kind of neat to kind of get these extra movies, and it's a trend that we start to see. There also was in 2022 the anime Futo PI, which is a sequel to Kamen Rider Double. Futo PI is licensed at Crunchyroll, I think globally. Double is still like only available in Japan and Asia. So It's really fun if you've seen the show, but it is a darker tone than the rest of the series. Now, 2010's Kamen Rider O's is a flamboyant, bombastic series. It is quite fun, and if you like kind of a character who's really good and wholesome, AG Kamen Rider O's is your friend. It lasted 48 episodes. Now, its main movies released during its show: Kamen Rider Movie War Core, Alternate Universe, Kamen Rider O's Wonderful, the Shogun and the 21 Core Medals, Alternate Universe. Kamen Rider and Forze and O's Movie War Megamax is canon for the O's and Forze parts. And then there was the O's 10th Core Medal of Resurrection movie, which made a lot of fans upset, even though I think you should still watch it and deal with the consequences there. And then if you enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it, there's also the O's 10th Kamen Rider Birth X Secret Story, which is an additional special. 2011's Kamen Rider Forze takes place in high school and features the man who will befriend everybody, Kisaragi Gentaro, as Kamen Rider Forze. Personal favorite of mine, this series lasted for 48 episodes. And if you like high school fun, it's fun. It's about fun and friendship and conquering, evil with the power of the friends that you have. It's great. It's a good vibe. There was several movies, though. The Movie War Megamax previously mentioned, that takes place after episode 14. Kamen Rider Forze Everyone's Space is Awesome takes place after episode 38. And then the Kamen Rider Wizard and Forze Movie War Ultimatum takes place after the series. In 2012, Kamen Rider Wizard lasted 53 episodes and features the main character Haruto, who is a wizard who is fighting against people's despair. It is interesting because it takes a different approach to monsters in the show, where the monsters are born from people's self-apathy and self-sadness, and that despair that they fall into is what the monsters get born from. So Haruto is fighting against that. I really like that kind of theme for Rider. There was Movie War Ultimatum taking place after episode 13. There is the Kamen Rider Wizard in Magic Land movie taking place after episode 43. And after the series, there was the Kamen Rider Gaimon Wizard Fateful Sengoku Movie War. All of those are important films to the story. 2013, Kamen Rider Gaim revived the Rider vs. Rider concept introduced by Ryuki. Lasting 47 episodes, you could totally watch it in a bubble on its own without worrying about any of the movie connections, because the head writer also ignored the movie connections. But Gaim is kind of a crazy show. It starts out about street dancing, it ends with philosophical things and a character's expansion into a new reality, so it gets a little intense, but Gaim is quite popular because of that. The movies to worry about, though: the Fateful Sengoku Movie War, taking place after episode 9, the Gaim Great Soccer Battle Golden Fruit Cup, taking place after episode 37, it's weird that one's canon. Kamen Rider Drive and Gaim Movie War Full Throttle takes place after the series. Then you have the Gaim Gaiden of Zangetsu and Baron taking place after episode 20, the Gaim Gaiden Duke that takes place after episode 9, and the Gaim Gaiden Knuckle, which takes place after Movie War Full Throttle. These were released after the show, but take place during the show. You could insert these if you want, or you could save them for the end of the series. Then you also have the Kamen Rider Zangetsu Gaim Gaiden stage show. And I normally wouldn't put stage shows on here, but this comes up again in the next special, but it essentially shows what Zangetsu did post-series, and it is available because they did release it on a Blu-ray in Japan, so there is ways to find it online. And to go with that, the Kamen Rider Gaim Gaiden Grid-On vs. Bravo actually features Zangetsu's new form from the stage show, which is why the stage show is canon. 2014's Kamen Rider Drive, seeing a group of detectives who investigate monsters that are allowing the world to slow down, and it is the first Kamen Rider where his main vehicle is not a motorcycle, but a car. He's like the Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider of Kamen Riders. It's cool. But there are some things to keep in mind. Drive was where they started doing a bunch of side specials. We're talking just throwing anything out there. There are too many to count, but here are the ones I think you should look for as the most important. First of all, Drive Type 0 Episode 0 Countdown to Global Freeze is a prequel. You could totally watch this before the series, or you could watch it when you're a few episodes in if you want to see if you like Drive. Kamen Rider Movie War Full Throttle, that takes place after episode 8. Kamen Rider Drive Surprise Future takes place after episode 40. After the series, Ghost and Drive Super Movie War Genesis is definitely a follow-up you want to pay attention to. And then there was the Drive Saga films. Chaser taking place after Surprise Future, and then Heart and Mock taking place after that. 2015's Kamen Rider Ghost lasted 50 episodes and featured Takeru dying in the first episode and having to collect the icons and defeat the villains in order to bring his life back, and that's why he is a ghost. It's kind of an interesting premise, honestly. Ghost lasted 50 episodes, and here are the important movies. Once again, there's a ton of side stuff here, but this is the important stuff. The Super Movie War Genesis takes place after episode 8. The 100 Icons and Ghost's Faithful Moment takes place after episode 42. Heisei Generations, Dr. Pac-Man vs. Ex-Aid and Ghost with Legend Riders. Yes, I did say Dr. Pac-Man. That takes place after the series. Kamen Rider Ghost Rebirth, Kamen Rider Spectre taking place after that movie. And then the crossovers with Kamen Rider Saber, Saber X Ghost, and Saber X Blades, which take place after all of that. 2016's Kamen Rider Ex-Aid features doctors who are fighting viruses through video games. It's a very inspired premise. It's a very cool show for that reason. This lasted 45 episodes and had way more specials than I can mention here. Here's the important ones. Heisei Generations, Dr. Pac-Man vs. Ex-Aid and Ghost of Legend Riders after episode 10. The Ex-Aid Tricks Kamen Rider Snipe episode 0 is a 4-episode series that is prequel, concurrent to the series, and I would recommend just watching it after. It's going to give you a lot of backstory stuff that's not in the show, which is a little frustrating. It's off on the side special, becomes a trend, but it's definitely worth watching after you've seen the show so you don't get any spoilers. Kamen Rider Ex-Aid True Ending takes place after episode 45. Heisei Generations' final build in Ex-Aid with Legend Riders takes place after the series. And then you have the Ex-Aid Another Ending trilogy with Brave and Snipe, Paradox and Poppy, and Gem vs. Laser, which all take place after the show. In 2017, Kamen Rider Build sees the scientist Sento and his best match partner Banjo become resistance fighters against oppressive governments as the country of Japan is split into 3 different countries. It's got a lot of heavy political messaging. It's pretty cool at that aspect. This lasted 49 episodes, and again, ton of specials, so the main ones. Heisei Generations Final taking place after episode 14. Build Raising the Hazard Level 7 Best Matches taking place after episode 21. Rogue taking place after episode 22. Be the One taking place after episode 45. Prime Rogue, which takes place after episode 41, even though it was released after. And then you have Build New World Cross Z and Build New World Grease, which are the 2 follow-up films. 2018's Kamen Rider Zi-O is not a good starting point for anything. While a lot of the shows I mentioned, you can just jump in without worrying about that one crossover movie, Zi-O references the 20 past series for the Heisei era in a way that Decade did, except it visits the actual realities they're from. You will get more of an impact when you've seen more Rider, but it does bring back actors and can be a little bit confusing if you haven't seen previous shows. However, if you have and you want to see some movies, there is Heisei Generations Forever, which is streaming on Tokusatsu, but that is non-canon to any show. There is the Rider Time Kamen Rider Shinobi special, which takes place after episode 18. The Rider Time Ryuki special, which does work as a Ryuki tie-in if you wanted to see this after Ryuki without watching Zi-O, but it does feature one of the Another Riders missing from the Zi-O series, so I bundle it here. That takes place after episode 22. The Kamen Rider Zi-O movie Over Quartzer is an alternate universe. Kamen Rider Reiwa The First Generation is a crossover with 01, and that takes place after the series. Kamen Rider Zi-O Next Time Gates Majesty takes place after that movie. And then you got the Kamen Rider Decade vs. Zi-O Decade's Mansion Death Game, which takes place after that. And Kamen Rider Zi-O vs. Decade 7 Different Zi-O, which takes place after that and concludes the Zi-O saga. So once Japan moved on to the Reiwa era, a new Rider series was born. Kamen Rider 01, which was actually Shout's first Kamen Rider Blu-ray release. And this show is also another one that has a ton of side specials. It's about future technology and the dangers of AI and if, AI robot people have rights. And it accomplishes talking about a lot of that, but not really giving any solutions to it. But 01 is steeped in cyberpunk type storytelling and has a lot of cool design work. I think it's a good entry point because Toei designed it as such, being the start of a new era. And if you are wanting to watch it, 45 episodes, it airs on Tokusatsu as well as being released on Blu-ray. There is Kamen Rider Reiwa The First Generation taking place after episode 9, the Project Thouser Part 1 special taking place after episode 10, the Project Thouser Part 2 special taking place after episode 16. Kamen Rider 01 Real Time, which was also included on that Blu-ray and is on Tokusatsu, takes place after the series, with the follow-up of Kamen Rider 01 Others Metsubo Jinrai and Vulcan and Valkyrie after that. In 2020, Kamen Rider Saber saw the story of a bookshop seller and author who teams up with a group of knights to take down the evil Medjed. It's a little bit more Sentai than Rider, but it can be a fun time. This lasted 48 episodes, and the important specials, bear with me, there were a lot. One of the problems with Saber is if you watch it just straight, you miss a lot of backstory and context we really needed in the show. but they were too busy doing other things. So here is the specials. There is the Kamen Rider Saber spin-off, Swordsman Chronicles, featuring Chapter 8.5, Slash and Buster, of course after Episode 8. Chapter 9, Other Side, Kenzan, which takes place during Episode 9. Behind Chapter 13, Espada, which takes place behind Episode 13. And then Chapter 15.5, Blades, which takes place after Episode 15. There's also the Kamen Rider Saber Immortal Swordsman's Book of Destruction, taking place after Episode 10. Sword of Logos Saga, which is a prequel/interlude. Watch it after Episode 16. There is the Saber's X Ghost crossover after Episode 28, and Spectre Cross Blades, which takes place after that. Kamen Rider Beyond Generations takes place after the series. Kamen Rider Saber Trio of Deep Sin takes place after that. And then Kamen Rider Saber spin-off, Kamen Rider Sabella and Durandal takes place after that. That's a lot of stuff. And here we come to Kamen Rider Revice. In 2021, the 50th anniversary Rider was Revice, and it doesn't do the anniversary thing Gio and Decade did with visiting past writers. It mostly just has references. Kamen Rider Revice is supposedly about a family who runs a bathhouse, but it gets wrapped up in multiple factions, war with a monster, and just a bunch of other stuff. It's a little bit of a crowded show. I'm just going to warn you straight up. Revice lasted 50 episodes. The first movie, Revice the movie, took place after episode 3. Beyond Generations took place after episode 13. Revice the Mystery takes place after episode 16. Kamen Rider Revice Legacy, Kamen Rider Veil, is a prequel that you want to watch probably around the 20s. When Veil shows up in the series, just go watch that prequel. The 2-episode spinoff, Dear Gaga, that was episode 28, after episode 28. Kamen Rider Jean and Aguilera with Girls Remix after episode 36. Revice movie spin-off delivered drama Birth of Chimera after episode 44. Revice Battle Familia after that. And then Geats/Revice movie battle royale after the series. Revice Forward, Live and Evil and Demons after that, and Juga and Oteka after that. And then we get to 2022's Kamen Rider Geats, which is the currently running show. And currently, the only special we have a continuity placement for is the movie Geats and Revice Movie Battle Royale after episode 15. There's also the upcoming Kamen Rider Punk Jack special, which I don't know where that places, and the Tycoon meets Shinobi special, which is a crossover with all the Ninja Riders, and that's why Shinobi's on the Geo list is an important thing. And then there is the confusing mess known as Kamen Rider Outsiders. The Toei Tokusatsu fan club does these specials, and a bunch of them ended on cliffhangers that all wrap up in Kamen Rider Outsiders, which had 2 prequel specials, Kamen Rider Gim's The Presidents, and Kamen Rider Gim's Smart Brain in the 1000% Crisis, bringing together the character of Gim from X-Aid and Thouser from 01. And then Outsiders is like weird because it brings back Ryuki characters in Saber and 01 and X-Aid. Don't watch Outsiders if you haven't seen a chunk of the modern franchise. It's a little bit of a crazy mess. Now, there is some entry points into Rider that are not featured in the main series. We're talking reboots of Showa Era series. So, if you are looking to get into Rider and are a little bit daunted by the modern shows, but you're too put off by the fact those old Showa series are done in the 70s and 80s, let's introduce the modern reboots. Kamen Rider the First in 2005 was a reboot of the original Kamen Rider series featuring Kamen Riders 1 and 2. Kamen Rider the Next, its sequel, was not as successful and featured Kamen Rider V3. But Kamen Rider Amazons, which was on Amazon Prime at one point but isn't there anymore, darn you streaming era, was a 2016 series lasting 13 episodes that featured a reimagining of Kamen Rider Amazon as 2 different riders, Amazon Omega and Alpha. Fair warning, this show is incredibly violent, so if you're not really one for a lot of body limb ripping, not the best pick for you. This was followed up with a 2017 sequel season of 13 episodes and a 2018 movie, Final Judgment, and while I like to keep opinions out of it, that's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, if you are looking for something that is steeped in political drama, is a bit more edgier and violent, but has a hopeful message in the end, 2022's Kamen Rider Black Sun, which I believe is still streaming worldwide on Amazon Prime Video, was a 10-episode series focused on all of that. It's quite incredible and can be emotionally devastating if you get attached. And then lastly, of course, 2023's Shin Kamen Rider is the newest reimagining of the original Rider series, and as I have recording this before I get to see the movie, I hope it's good. But on that note, that is the Kamen Rider viewing guide. So like I said at the top, that's not everything. There is so much more Rider beyond what I talked about, even though I talked about a ton of stuff. If you have any questions about continuity placements, or if something's important or what something is, please leave them in the comments. I'll be glad to help you out. I hope you enjoy your journey into Kamen Rider, and I hope that this guide was helpful in some way. Or if you're just watching Rider and you've been watching it and you're like, oh, the Agito movie takes place then? I hope this was also helpful for that. So on that note, be sure to leave a comment. If you have any questions, hit the like button while you're down there, subscribe and the notification bell, because I'm probably going to be doing one of these for Ultraman and Super Sentai, and maybe some other franchises in the future. So you want to stay tuned. Check out my live streams Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about Tokusatsu news and all kinds of fun stuff. And you can find me on social media at Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Soundout12. You can also find my awesome graphic designer on Twitter at DarkClaw643, and Hero Club at hero-club.com for Tokusatsu interviews, news, and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, Henshin!